There he stood, the man that claimed to be a king. The chief priest cared more about his other claim, that he was the Son of God, the Messiah. The chief priests were terrified because the masses of people that they had seen who followed this man. His loyal supporters were everywhere. Everywhere but here. Here he stood alone, except for Pilate at his side. I heard murmurs from the crowd. They're going to ask Pilate to release a prisoner. I then heard Pilate yell over the crowd, "Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?" Pilate's words angered the chief priests and the rest of the crowd. How dare he call this man a king? He certainly wasn't King of the Jews. Suddenly, I heard whispers of a name I didn't want to hear. Barabbas. Like a snake, the word weaved its way around the crowd until everyone was saying it, and then some even yelling it. Not Barabbas, not him. He was violent beyond imagining, a zealot who went on killing rampages of Romans. It just gave the soldiers more excuses to mistreat us. They would kill innocent Israelis as revenge. Barabbas was the worst zealot of them all. Before I could gather my thoughts, I heard Pilate speak again. "What shall I do then, the one that you call King of the Jews?" This seemed to make the crowd even angrier. There we were standing, tense. Two words were suddenly yelled. "Crucify him!" Then another person shouted, "Crucify him!" And again louder, "Crucify him!" And then another, "Crucify, crucify, crucify him!" Suddenly, the crowd became violent. People were yelling with such anger I'd never seen. It didn't seem human. It was as if the crowd was compelled by something beyond them. I was shoved into following the crowd as the soldiers led the prisoner to be flogged. I did not want to watch. It was disgusting. Yet I could not look away. It was as if I had to watch. Every lash seemed like an eternity. Once it was all over, you couldn't see a man. He was covered with blood, skin ripped, hanging in shreds. But as he stood up and looked at the crowd, I could have sworn his eyes looked at me. But not into my eyes, but into my heart. I'll never get that image out of my head. The soldiers took the condemned man away into the palace, and they didn't come out till much later. When they did, it was obvious they had tortured him more. Then came the slow walk to Golgotha. I sometimes lost sight of the man, but I tried to stay as close as possible. There was something about that night. After a while, he couldn't carry his cross anymore, so they forced another man to carry it. The man from the crowd was soon covered in the blood of the condemned man. I remembered wondering how he would ever get clean. Finally, they reached Golgotha. I could not tear my eyes away as they drove spikes into his hands and feet. Then put him up in front of everyone. He was shamed with nakedness, and yet it was I who felt such deep shame. This man wasn't like the criminals that hung on either side of him. Yet it was him that everyone mocked. The people cursed and yelled and screamed that he was a liar. They derided him with such anger, such venom. The other thing I noticed most was that the sign that Pilate had ordered to be hung above the man. It was basically the charge against him, King of the Jews, it read. There it was again. Why did people insist on calling him that? What king would be crucified? The hours stretched by, but all I could see was the struggle this man was going through. I don't remember all he said up there. All I remember is that he suffered. I don't remember what time it was. It had been dark for a few hours when the prisoner let out a cry. It wasn't a sound I'd ever heard before. It was almost as though I felt it. He cried from deep inside, and then he died. As I looked at the dead body of this man, my eye caught the sign still hanging above, and it hit me. This wasn't just the King of the Jews. He was the King